There is a moment in every life when you wake up and realize you've been chasing a ghost, but by then, decades have passed. Let me tell you about a man named Rashid, because his story might just be the mirror you need to look into right now. In a dust-colored city at the edge of a vast desert lived a weaver named Rashid. His carpets were so extraordinary that nobles from 3 provinces commissioned his work. People traveled for months just to see them. They were perfect, flawless, magnificent, and they were slowly destroying him. Here's the thing no one tells you about perfection. The higher you climb, the further the next peak appears. Rashid had spent 30 years climbing, and with each masterpiece, the hunger only grew. While a carpenter below him made thousands of tables that fed thousands of families, Rashid's carpets belonged only to the wealthy few. A single carpet, one work, one chance to be remembered. That thought became a stone in his chest, and every day it grew heavier. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't eat properly. His wife would find him on the roof at midnight, staring at the stars, wondering if his name would survive him. His children barely knew him. They knew the loom better than they knew their father. But Rashid didn't care about any of that. He cared about one thing: being the greatest. Then, one spring morning, everything changed. A traveling merchant arrived with news that would become the thread pulling Rashid toward either salvation or destruction. The Sultan of a distant realm was hosting a competition. The world's finest weavers were invited. The winner would receive fame that rippled across every kingdom, recognition that would echo through history, through generations, forever. Rashid's name would live beyond his body. He would be remembered. When he heard this, Rashid felt something shift in his chest. This was it. This was the moment. This was the answer to the question that had haunted him for 3 decades. He began immediately. Winter came, and instead of resting, Rashid traveled to the mountains to oversee sheep shearing himself. He journeyed to remote valleys searching for plants that produced the most brilliant dyes, indigo so deep it held the color of the night sky, crimson like pomegranate seeds split open in sunlight, saffron gold that moved like honey. He mortgaged everything: his workshop, his savings, his peace. When spring arrived, his hands moved in a fever. He barely slept. His apprentices watched, frightened. He would unravel entire sections if a single knot seemed imperfect. He spoke to no one. He ate when he remembered to eat. For 8 months he worked like a man possessed by a vision that lived only inside his own mind. And then it was done. When Rashid finally stopped, he collapsed beside his loom like a man who had run across the desert without water. But when he saw what he had created, tears came to his eyes. The carpet showed a garden that did not exist anywhere in the world, a garden where nightingales sang in impossible trees, where fountains of light seemed to flow upward rather than down, where every human figure held some ancient secret knowledge behind their eyes. It was a masterpiece, not just good, not just excellent. It was transcendent. He wrapped it in cloth and paid a fortune to have it carried west, through deserts, over mountains, through cities whose names he would never know, until it reached the palace of the Sultan. And then came the waiting. 3 months of silence, 3 months of wondering, 3 months of a man slowly losing his mind because everything he had sacrificed, everything, depended on one moment he could not control. He tried to work on smaller pieces, but his hands felt useless. Nothing satisfied him. He couldn't think. He could barely breathe. Every evening he would stand at his window and imagine the Sultan seeing his carpet, imagine the other weavers standing in awe, imagine his name being spoken in palaces he would never see. One summer morning, hotter than any morning should be, a courier arrived on horseback. The letter was sealed with the Sultan's official mark. Rashid's hands shook so violently he could barely break the seal. He had won. The letter described his carpet in terms of breathless admiration. The Sultan had wept at seeing it. The other weavers, masters of their craft, had stood in silence for an hour, unable to speak. His name would be inscribed in the palace walls. He was invited to present the carpet himself, and the Sultan would grant him any reward he desired. Any reward, any fame, any immortality. Rashid read the letter 50 times that day, and something strange happened. With each reading, the joy he felt became more and more distant. It was as if he were reading about someone else's happiness. The elation he had imagined for 30 years lasted maybe 6 hours. By nightfall, a whisper began. But now what? That question terrified him. The night before he was to depart for the Sultan's palace, the night that should have been the happiest of his life, Rashid could not sleep. He walked through the sleeping city like a ghost, his feet carrying him through streets he had known his entire life. He passed the mosque, the bathhouse, the garden where his children used to play, back when he had time for them. And there, near a fountain, he found something that would change everything. An old man was braiding rope, just braiding rope. His fingers moved with no hurry, no desperation. His face held a peace that Rashid had never seen on any human face before, the kind of peace that comes from having stopped fighting the world. The rope he created was simple, not beautiful, not extraordinary, just rope, meant for practical purposes, nothing more. Without knowing why, Rashid sat down beside him. They sat in silence for a long time. The old man did not acknowledge him, merely continued his work. The sound of his fingers working the rope was rhythmic, meditative, almost musical. After perhaps an hour, the old man spoke in a voice like wind through reeds. "You have won something." "How do you know?" Rashid asked, startled. "Your face announces it," the old man said. "You wear your victory like a prisoner wears chains, with the certainty that you are now bound to something you cannot escape." And then something broke open in Rashid. He found himself telling this stranger, this old rope-braider, everything. His hunger, his 30 years of sacrifice, the competition, his victory, his confusion at why the greatest moment of his life felt like a tomb opening. When he finished, tears were streaming down his face, and he did not know why. The old man set down his rope and looked at him directly for the first time. His eyes were the color of stones worn smooth by water, and in them was an awareness of human suffering that comes only from having suffered much yourself. "Do you know what I am braiding?" the old man asked. "I am braiding rope, the same rope I have braided for 50 years. Nothing has changed in my work. My rope is neither admired nor scorned. It simply is. No one speaks my name. No one will remember me. And yet I am free in a way that you, with all your magnificent creations, have never been." Rashid waited. "I am free because I do not carry my worth inside my work. I do not need the Sultan's tears. I do not need the world's applause. My worth lives in my heart alone, and it needs no mirror to confirm it." The old man stood slowly, gathering his materials, and as he rose, he placed one hand on Rashid's shoulder, and in that touch was the weight of years and wisdom. "Go to the Sultan if you wish, claim your prize, accept your fame. But know this, the moment you are loved for what you make rather than for who you are, you have traded your life for an illusion. The moment you complete one masterpiece and immediately begin hunting for the approval that will come from another, you are chasing shadows. The moment your peace depends on other people's judgment, you have already lost everything." Then the old man walked away into the darkness, and Rashid never saw him again. Rashid sat alone by the fountain for the rest of the night. As dawn broke over the city, painting the sky in shades of coral and gold, he made a decision that should have been impossible. He did not go to the Sultan's palace. Instead, he sent a profound respect and gratitude, but he did not accept the position of greatest weaver in the realm. He did not claim the fame. He did not accept the fortune. And then he did something that shocked everyone in the city. He tore down his loom with his own hands. His apprentices thought he had lost his mind, but Rashid had finally found it. What he did instead was weave differently. Simple scarves for farmers' wives against the cold of morning, blankets for children so they could wrap themselves in warmth and safety, rugs for the homes of common people who would never know his name. He worked with wool that was good but not extraordinary, with dyes that were beautiful but not costly. He worked slowly. He smiled while he worked. He took apprentices from poor families and taught him his craft not so they could become famous, so they could feed their families and find peace in the work of their hands. Most importantly, he stopped weaving for the eyes of others. He wove for his hands. He wove for the rhythm of the work itself. He wove for the knowledge that simple, honest creation was enough. More than enough. It was everything. The city eventually forgot that Rashid had once been famous. New weavers arrived, greater carpets were created. But Rashid watched this with a heart that held no envy, no regret, no shadow of the hunger that had once eaten him alive. Years passed, decades passed. Rashid grew old with gray in his beard and wisdom in his eyes. His children, who had barely known him as a young man, spent their final years with him. His grandchildren learned to weave not for glory, but for love. On the day he died, surrounded by his apprentices and his children and his grandchildren, his last words were not about his masterpiece that hung in the Sultan's palace, the one everyone had forgotten. Instead, he spoke of the simple blanket he had woven that very week, and how soft it had felt beneath his fingers, and how a young mother from the neighborhood had wept when he gave it to her for free because her newborn had no blanket and the nights were growing cold. This, he said, with a peace in his voice that transcended everything, this was my real masterpiece. Now listen to me carefully, because this is not just Rashid's story. This is the story of anyone who has ever felt that hunger, anyone who has stayed up late thinking about what other people think, anyone who has sacrificed presence for recognition, anyone who has traded their actual life for the illusion of a moment's applause. You are not your accomplishments. You are not other people's approval. You are not the reflection that exists in other people's eyes. These things are illusions, beautiful perhaps, but illusions nonetheless. They shimmer in the distance like water on a desert road, and when you finally reach them, your throat is still parched. The real garden you are seeking is not one that others will admire. It is the garden within your own heart, the one that grows when you do work that is honest and true, not because anyone will ever know about it, but because your own hands know it. That is enough. Ask yourself this: what applause are you chasing? What approval are you willing to sacrifice your presence for? What masterpiece are you creating that you will never enjoy because you are too busy watching other people's faces to see if they are impressed? What relationships are you neglecting? What moments are you missing? These are not gentle questions, but they might be the most important questions you ever answer. Go now and weave your life not for the judgment of the marketplace, but for the quiet satisfaction of honest hands. Go and find the peace that comes only when you stop trading your real life for the illusion of recognition. Go and sit, as Rashid learned to sit, in the knowledge that you are enough,
that what you create in the privacy of your own heart, unseen by anyone, unknown to anyone, is more precious than any empire of acclaim could ever be. This is the wisdom that Rashid bought with 40 years of struggle. The gift is freely offered to you now. The only question that remains is this: will you accept it, or will you spend your life chasing a shadow that can never be held?